Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the ICCI Pavilion, the Cryosphere Pavilion. Today, we are joined by APECS, the Association of Polar Early Career Scientists. Today, representing APECS, we have Susanna, Ryan, Simone. They are here with us today to discuss how early career scientists can be part of the COP experience, how they can bring their expertise and knowledge to discussions and negotiations, and how to get more involved with the community. So I hope I did you guys justice. So with that said, Susanna, would you like to get us started?
Excellent. Thank you very much. We do also have two online attendees who will be joining us shortly. But just to give an introduction of APECS, as said, it's the Association for Polar Early Career Scientists. My name is Susanna Hancock, and I was president until last October. So this discussion is just going to be on youth in the pulse. And this worked a moment ago. There we go. Now it's working again. Thank you, Amy. So APECS is an organization that is truly global. It started about 16 years ago now. We have nearly 5,000 young people from around the world in 80 different countries. On the map here that you can see, the orange states are those with national committees. The blue states are those without national committees, but we have significant representation. That representation can be people who are maybe studying there, living somewhere else, but from there, et cetera, have some allegiance to that region. The gray areas are areas in which we do not currently have people who've identified themselves as from there. That's not to say that they're not from there. They might be living somewhere else, or they might be doing research somewhere else and choose to identify from that location. Our members comprise university students. That can be undergrad, it can be up to postdoc. And we also have early career professionals. So 5, 7, even sometimes more years post-doctorate, educators who are engaged in teaching that are younger people, as well as others. It's really sort of a self-defined, which for me is really exciting. So, but as part of this, and because of this early career focus, a lot of our focus is on career development and on really helping people develop, grow as researchers, as scientists. We are, Association of Polar Early Career Scientists, but we take that word scientist. We actually had extensive debates about it last year. We take it very liberally. So we have artists, we have musicians, we have anybody who really feels that there may be a researcher or they want to engage within an academic or an outreach community who's involved. So certainly outreach, education are all areas we do. Work on capacity, sharing, development, providing news and opportunities for younger people who may otherwise not really be granted ease in publication or ease in expedition research, for example, and really trying to figure out what those opportunities are. What are opportunities for, academic study, for learning. So our current membership leadership structure is centered around our executive committee, which is within the purple zone there. Our executive committee comprises 5 current people that are each year. We have 4 vice presidents and 1 president, and we also have 2 ex officio members. And then we have national committee coordinators who do that outreach with, again, those countries where we have about 30 different countries right now that have official membership. We also do social media and council chairs, and those council chairs really bring together and coordinate national committees, partner organizations, project groups, et cetera. Other people who join when looking at sort of that 5,000 people, they are part of national committees and project groups mainly, and those are either geolocation or thematic interest groups. And so those groups change a little bit year to year. They change as who's interested, who's engaged, who wants to be doing something. And it's as easy as I created one 2 years ago where I got together with somebody who said, hey, this is a topic we want to do. Let's figure out how to do it. And we got other people who are interested. So it changes and it really responds to the community, which is kind of fun. We currently have a staff team. We have 2 people at the University of Tromsø, which is the current host of our directorate. It's been for about 2 years. Sarah Strand, who's our executive director, and Axel Schwindlein, who's our director officer. Those 2 are based in Norway. And then at the Alfred Wegener Institute in Germany, which was the host of APECS Directorate until 2 years ago, we have Lisa Gressfeld, who's the project officer, and then Dr. Josephine Lentz, who is affiliated with us through Arctic Passion. And Josephine was the executive director before Sarah, so she brings quite a legacy of engagement. So as I said, project groups change and develop, and in response to who's part of APECS at that current term. And going again, saying that this is, early career scientists, taking that word science very liberally. You'll see we have, an art group, we have a podcast group. We, for the first time this year, have our UN climate change conference. Ryan and a couple others were working really hard over the past 18 months to get us membership as a UN FCCC observer. And so that was succeeded. So this year, not our first year of having representatives here as APECS, but our first year as an organization having a delegation. And we also look at, mental health, equity, polar observation, which remote sensing, and some of the more standard scientific domains. But these, as I said, they develop. So one on the top right there, Responsible Science Initiative, or RISE, came out of, for example, the Mosaic expedition. We're also starting a new one, which is the Svalbard ECR network in collaboration with SIOS, so the Svalbard Integrated Observing System. And that one is kind of fun because it's both a geographic location, given that many students go to Svalbard for work or study, but they don't necessarily have other allegiance to that place, as in that's not necessarily where they're from. And they may only be there for a short period. A lot of other people do a lot of work in Svalbard and are very interested and engaged in that area, but don't necessarily live there. So that's kind of a special one, thematic and geographic. But these project groups have been able to do some really neat things. So one group 2 years ago, a year and a half ago, worked with Interact to put out a field guide on reducing the environmental impact of polar research. We have our podcast, which is Polar Times, and that brings together people who are interested in music design studio, adding jingles and pulling together podcasts, and other people who are interested in going out and actually researching and doing interviews. So that's an ongoing project. Very engaged in polar weeks. So really looking at both the March and the September polar weeks. So the regions of the equinox. So both honoring both Arctic and Antarctica, because we are an organization that really takes a broad cryosphere approach, which is also really great because it brings together people. Whereas I find outside of APECS, it's really hard for me as somebody who's usually more Arctic to be engaged in Antarctica, and I kind of do a little bit of both. So it's kind of special in that sense. So we honor those 2 weeks, and that provides opportunities for our members to share their research, to talk, to present in a sort of a safe and encouraging space, and we'll do some webinars. We also had one group last year that pulled together a handbook on Antarctica that has been really successful. So, we're an organization, but we're not an organization by ourselves. We are a consortium member of a variety of projects, member of the EU Polar Cluster, Interact, which we're dropping out of, but coming into Polarin, into Arctic Passion, RISE, Youth Together for Arctic Futures. We're trying to really figure out how we fit into this larger polar network. Last term had a number of really highly successful events. So we've worked on proposals for a research vessel that happened, brought together both panels and social events at some of the past Arctic Science Summit weeks, and had, more than 60 people who joined us in Vienna at last one, and it was really last minute so that we organized it. So it was really great to have that kind of turnout. But we also had many members who are panelists and helped them figure out how do you get to be a panelist, and help find some of those opportunities for them at some of these sessions. The Interact handbook that I mentioned on reducing CO2, again, receiving the UNFCCC accreditation. And we're currently working on a special collection of a PLOS climate publication that we've been pulling together over the past year, and then running some webinars. Our national committees have also been quite successful and have been able to do various things, from holding youth fora to film festivals. And we really let them operate very independently. They have their own board, they have their own structure, and they get to do, we basically, as the international side, help network them, help maybe say, oh, this committee is interested in doing something, maybe they want to come together. We've had, for example, Chile and Spain come together where they don't necessarily collaborate, but they wanted to do something on the role of Spanish. So figuring out who's doing what and kind of engaging sort of overall structure. So we're going to go into our panel. I can just do a very brief introduction to that. We will then drop the slides so that our 2 remote participants can join us. But we have right here Brian O'Hara, who's one of the current vice presidents of APECS, Sasha, who will be joining remotely, me, and Dr. Geeta Pakal, who's, she can introduce herself, and Simone here as well. So we will hand it over to Ryan, who will be moderating the session. So thank you, Ryan.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Susanna, and thank you all for being here for our event today. While we kind of pull up our 2 virtual speakers, I thought I'd kind of talk a little bit about some of the primary goals of today's session. We kind of hope this is a very just kind of open discussion about the role of early career researchers in both the COP process as well as the kind of climate policy process in general. So we're going to talk a little bit about kind of some of our personal experiences as early career researchers in these fields, some of the barriers we've faced, and kind of some of the opportunities we've gotten kind of through organizations like APECS. And hopefully kind of walk away with a bit of a better understanding of kind of what the early career experience is in climate, as well as what can be done to improve that. So just kind of while we're pulling people up, we can maybe talk a little bit more about kind of just APECS in general. Kind of like Susanna talked a lot about. We kind of really focus on trying to provide opportunities for early career researchers. And a little bit later, actually, we'll kind of be talking about some of our current ongoing projects. But we're very excited to kind of be here at COP and kind of get to share a little bit of the work we've been doing. And kind of hope to kind of learn from all the other groups here as well to kind of bring stuff back to our organization. Sure, yeah. So yeah, we're pulling everyone up so we can kind of start going through with introductions now. There we go. So I'll start with myself. Like Susanna mentioned, my name is Ryan O'Hara. I'm an undergraduate from the United States. I go to Harvey Mudd College. My primary research focus is kind of really on developing more energy efficient autonomous robots for ocean use to kind of better collect climate data and kind of provide kind of remediation efforts. I am kind of currently supported by the 776 Foundation, for instance, kind of a very large research grant to pursue a project on kind of trying to develop and recultivate kelp forests off the coast of California. And like Susanna mentioned, I'm also currently the vice president of APECS this year. Just kind of move over to Susanna next for an introduction.
Thank you very much, Brian. So I'm Susanna, as I mentioned at the beginning. I was president of APECS until this past October. Outside of that, I am a science manager for Arctic Grant, so I work at the nexus of social and natural science. My main interest is on translating natural science to policy and change. So with that, my big interests are looking at how the changing cryosphere affects global risk, and then how do we communicate that? How do we work with people to understand what that risk is and actually do something about it? I also have a hobby of strapping on skis and heading across polar ice caps. So that's something that I also do for work. I've developed a couple nonprofits to be able to do that and support that. And I go and conduct my own research. And then also one of the big focuses for me is when I get back from the ice, how do I communicate what I've seen? Because so often it's, you can publish something, but it might take a while to come out, whereas when you're on the ice and you're seeing something that's happening immediately and it's super, super rapid, how do you actually be able to communicate that and do that from little kids to people here at COP? So I've been able to come to COP to actually talk about some of that as well.
All right, thank you, you two, for first of all introducing us and also getting that started. My name is Simone Reichenrieder. I'm from Germany originally. Right now, I am working for the Asian Development Bank on nature-based solution research and especially indigenous knowledge combined with nature markets. And while I'm on the one hand with the bank, I'm also on the other hand working on like Arctic projects and Himalayan projects. So on the third pole, basically, also with nature-based solutions and indigenous knowledge. So how can you actually ensure that indigenous people and local communities are, first of all, involved in the process of implementing nature-based solutions, but also are involved in actually constructing the whole idea, the project, what are the safeguards, which carbon standards, for example, are there, which nature credits are actually like, using methodologies that involve their knowledge in Nordic countries, but also in the Himalayas. And I think, yeah, so far, like my part in APECS mostly right now with the COP group and also with the polar weeks before. So I'm excited.
Thanks so much, Simone. So we'll bring it over to our virtual presenters now. We start with Geeta, maybe.
Yes, can you hear me?
Indeed.
Okay. Yes, I am Dr. Geeta Plakal from Kerala, India, and I am an early career marine scientist, and I'm working as director for the World Alliance for Planetary Earth, a company from USA. And my research area is marine and estuarine, benthic ecology, and taxonomy. And I'm very passionate, environmental awareness, education, and other activities to support the conservation and protection of nature and the biodiversity. And also, I am active member in a climate reality corps as an active climate reality leader and island innovation ambassador and ambassador at Ramtech Europe. And have membership in more than 25 organizations that related with the climate change, sustainability, and biodiversity conservation and marine conservation, etc. And I completed different types of online courses related with this subjects and area. And I am working as a volunteer for several organizations. Thank you so much.
Great. Thanks so much, Geeta. And I'll pass it over to Sasha for your introduction.
Thank you.
Hello, everyone. Really happy to be here. Thank you for this unique opportunity. So I am Dr. Alexandra Filipova. I am a polar marine researcher. Up until recently, I was working at the Geomar Helmholtz Center for Ocean Science in Kiel, Germany, doing research, and my main focus was the ocean circulation changes induced by meltwater input events in the past and how this information can help us better understand what can we expect with meltwater increasing right now in the polar regions. Recently, I have shifted my focus more to working with NGOs in the area of sustainability. And right now I'm working with a viable community where we work mostly on restoring, protecting nature and biodiversity, and also developing projects on the clean energy transition and renewable energy. And I've been involved with APECS, I think, for the past 2 or 3 years. I started as the project co-group leader for one of the Polar Weeks, which was really an amazing experience. It also allowed me to let my creativity loose, so to speak. And yeah, I was working together recently with Ryan to try and bring this delegation to COP, which is wonderful to see that people are out there and representing APECS as a community, as an NGO, and all the amazing work that APECS is doing.
Wonderful. Thank you both for your introductions. Now I'm going to dive right into our panel discussion. So our first kind of real question of focus is going to be trying to get right to the heart of the issue we're going to discuss today, which is kind of talk a little bit about the role that we see ECRs playing in responding to the climate crisis. So I would love to hear some of the thoughts of our panelists about how you see really for research in particular, really providing your unique insights and views on this issue to be really valuable parts of this ongoing problem we're facing. So Susanna, I'm going to take it away.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you. I think as an ECR, where I feel especially benefited is that I grew up, talking about the climate crisis and having that as a common part of my youth. I have been testifying at the government since I was yay tall. So it's something that I really just grew up with and was very comfortable with from a young age. But because of that, I also came with this sort of, I was both super shy and super annoying, probably both of those still. But as a little kid, where I was sort of just happy to yell at people. And I feel like as a younger researcher, I've sort of kept a little bit of that where I don't feel held back by established protocol, whereas some of my older colleagues be like, well, I'd never speak out of that. I wouldn't go to a protest. I'm like, why not? You know, I mean, I can be a scientist and really want to get into causing good trouble when I need to. So to me, that's been really great. I think also I have been able to benefit from a culture, and this has both to do with age, time going through school, but also location as well, certainly. But able to benefit from a culture in which I was really encouraged to be interdisciplinary when I wanted to be. And that's something that I've definitely seen more and more common around the world. And so I felt like I can go into arenas that maybe I wouldn't have felt comfortable earlier. So I'll stop there and
Yeah, I think maybe I can pick up your point on like the location basically, or the interdisciplinarity overall, because I think that's actually like the biggest asset we as young ECR basically have, because the world is more or less open to us. And that's something, for example, my parents are always so surprised when they hear my friends, for example, talking that they went to this university somewhere in Asia or somewhere in Alaska, basically. And I think that provides us a perspective of like a global unity that maybe all the generations don't have, well, not as big as we have, or not as easily as we got it, basically. And also with that comes obviously an understanding of like different cultures, maybe also different topics that are maybe more important in other parts of the world, that are maybe like extremely important here or there. And we can actually, as young people, kind of hear that and pick that up and then question again, like, oh, what did I hear maybe at home, or what is happening there, or what is with that research I heard about there, and then kind of actually be part of that and really bring those experiences, these international experience towards like solving climate crisis overall.
Yeah, and I think that's really cool. I've lived in 6 countries that are very, very different and across different parts of the world. And I think having those experiences, even though the opportunities in each weren't necessarily the same, but the idea that I could be living in Palestine, I could be living in Norway, and neither of those are places in which I was born, but they both give very, very different. So that mobility.
Exactly, and also the knowledge with that.
Exactly.
I completely agree. Yeah, I think kind of jumping off of the kind of internationality points. I mean, I say you look at our project group right here, APECS, right? You know, we spent the past, 12 months kind of really trying to organize our delegation here at the top, with members from quite literally every corner of the planet. But that wouldn't have been possible, kind of in an age without, kind of internet and kind of the technological advances of the 21st century. So kind of thing, kind of with our generation really growing up with, those technologies and kind of access to that interconnectivity. I just completely agree with what both you guys said about how it kind of really builds empathy to kind of other parts of the world, and kind of really allows you to kind of build people who are interested in your immediate, local sphere. Doesn't kind of exist kind of far stronger, more empathetic researchers and contributors to this crisis.
Do we have anyone online?
Yeah, if I may add to it, I completely agree with everything what you said. And looking at what I admire of the current generation of early career researchers and scientists is how much more bold and open and proactive the people are right now. Maybe it's the urgency of the problem that there is no time left to just sit back and just contemplate about what the problem is, but they just go and do things. They're not talking about doing things, they're doing things. And I think that's why things like APECS are important, because they give them the platform to show what they're doing, what the actions could be, what could be the solutions, instead of, somewhere in the closed room discuss something and then years later maybe it will reach the other people. So for that, I truly admire the current generation of early career researchers, and I think they should get more and more platforms like APECS where they can speak up and make the change and be the change.
And I think ECR is playing a great role, to fight against the climate change crisis via their activities and involvement in a major led platform like that, APEX, and the research and other activities, networking and collaborations were increasing globally related with the climate change issues and everything. Many organizations are moving forward, and also the APEX also gives such an important opportunity to participate, to act against such a common goal, and that is important. And I appreciate the organizations, the organizers, to just organize like this one event in a COP28 UAE this year, and it's very great. And we will I hope we can improve the sessions or event in the next year and upcoming years to aware to educate others to more about the importance of the conservation of the polar ecosystems and biodiversity, and its importance to conservation of these polar ecosystems for the survival of humanity and her life on Earth. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you all for your contributions. And kind of just one more point to wrap up this discussion is I want to kind of touch on what Susanna and Sasha kind of really touched on, with kind of the increased awareness that perhaps kind of younger early career researchers have about the kind of intersectionality of the climate crisis, and I think that at least in kind of my circles, the kind of I frame, but we see a lot of people kind of calling out not just the kind of problem with the climate crisis, but always kind of related social justice issues as well, right? Kind of bringing up this idea of like, hey, we can't really solve the climate crisis, but also resolving these other incredibly deep-seated social injustices, kind of social problems. We've seen a lot of this year. Just kind of think that it's really, really good and really promising that kind of we like kind of as a generation are really kind of big and kind of noticing those things and kind of connecting to the crisis. Get more, say, a holistic view of what this crisis looks like and exactly how we need to go about resolving. So I want to kind of move to our second question, which kind of focuses a little bit more on the kind of, benefits of some organizations and kind of problems with others, about kind of supporting ECRs. So kind of hoping to talk a little bit first about kind of how either APECS or any organization in general that any of you are a part of has supported you as an ECR. What have these organizations done to, help kind of platform use an ECR and kind of like help provide you the resources you need to succeed? So I guess Simone.
Yeah, maybe I can start on this. So I think maybe let me start with APECS actually. I think for me it is really helpful that we have like this huge network, and especially with my research being kind of like Arctic, but also in the Himalayas, it's kind of hard to actually like access different networks first of all, and like really talk to the people on the ground, talk to someone else who's maybe doing something similar. And with that, APECS is actually pretty helpful because you can really easily connect and get people to actually talk to you first of all, and you get the insights more or less. And I think also with the career development, that's something pretty helpful. With like I'm also like part of a think tank, the Himalayan geopolitics, like Himalayan water, and they also really support young researchers in terms of, oh, do you have a project? What do you actually want to do? Like really trying to figure out how, with whom, with what funding. And I think that's also maybe something that is actually a challenge for a lot of young researchers, because first of all, we need a place where we can actually work and do the research if we're not in university anymore. Then also, how do we get the funding? And I think just navigating these challenges and having other people to talk to, especially young people, is something that's amazing, like in these networks. So maybe Susanna, or maybe someone online.
Yeah, if I can add on that. For me, when I was doing, for example, a PhD, I was lacking those opportunities to develop, not only doing my science, but also develop in other areas, get this experience of working with big group of people that doing research in different areas, because sometimes as a young career researchers, you sort of overlooked because of your inexperience, and you're not giving those opportunities within your research institution. That's why APECS is so great, because there's so widespread of different possibilities what you can do, from being a national committee organizer, director, or you can do lead project groups, organize delegation for COP, and so on. And I think this is great, because then people also, as Susanna mentioned, that APECS brings all those different people together, that helps us maybe find better alternative solutions to climate crisis, because there's not only scientists there, but there are also artists, poets, and everyone, and you can find, working together, you can find a unique solution to bring, because there's a problem of us scientists delivering the message, obviously, otherwise I wouldn't be here, right? It wouldn't be COP28, because we're struggling to deliver that message so everyone hears it clearly. But that's why you need everyone, from artists to poets to musicians to actors, come together and find a unique way of delivering this message to everyone, so it's understandable and believable, and people start to act.
Yes, I am very glad to join with the APECS organization, and I am this. I am here at the third year or a third term in with this organization. Really. Very glad to work in several projects in these 3 years, with the seminars, organizing seminars, events, and writing books, or some review works, and reviewing applications of our fellowships, etc. And also, these are all are the opportunity to grow our skills, and also we are doing a common work for a great cause, or solving the major issue like climate change issues and all. And I am so happy to have such an opportunity here to interact with everyone. Actually, the members from different countries, or many continents or different places, come together to act for one goal. Thank you so much.
Yeah, and I think I can just add a little bit to what everybody said so far. But for me, as somebody who grew up being very interdisciplinary, I had, from 4 years old, I wanted to be an astrophysicist, but also a studio artist. And I got to my undergrad and I said, they're like, well, I was in the US at the time, and they're like, well, what are you going to study? And I said, well, I'm going to major in astrophysics and studio art. And they said, well, all right, so which one? I was like, no, you don't understand. I'm going to do it. And they're like, okay, great, good luck. And I kind of had that a little bit when I went through both of those, but circuitously, I was also trying to do research in the polar regions. And I really just got through undergrad, through my graduate school, it was like, great, do what you want, go do it. And hopefully you won't get into problems with it. Like, it was just really feeling like I was completely alone. And when I wasn't doing something that was part of an established pathway. So for me, an organization like APECS, I could talk to people, and maybe there wasn't somebody doing exactly what I wanted to be doing, but I could engage, figure out, how can I be doing something with art that I want to be doing, and talk with other people who are doing that, other people who are sharing some of my interests, and we could have these conversations. And really, I think, going back to that intersectionality, there are so many people who are looking at the areas of interdisciplinary work. And so that for me was really, really supportive. And just knowing, opportunities, because, my institutions were very much like, if that's what you want to do, great, go do it. And there wasn't that framework. And so I think APECS was an organization that really helped me find that framework to learn what's out there and what people do.
No, I completely agree. And thank you all for kind of your thoughts, and kind of, we all have kind of very similar perspectives, I think, on kind of the benefits of these early career organizations in careers like APECS. I know, kind of speaking personally, I'm kind of, very, very young. I'm an undergraduate still. And I think kind of that organizations like APECS kind of give me access to opportunities I wouldn't have otherwise, just kind of via my, school institution or whatnot. It's actually kind of through APECS I kind of first started getting involved in kind of work out here at COP, and kind of in similar, projects like this. So I'm kind of, by having access to these large networks of resources, and kind of like Susanna mentioned, kind of whole network of people in a wide variety of different fields, You kind of really learn a lot of things that you wouldn't get kind of through traditional institutions or educational pathways. So kind of now we're looking at the opposite side of what we just talked about, which is kind of some of the challenges and barriers that we've all faced as ECRs. And kind of it's important to kind of really shed a bit of a light on these. So let's talk a little bit about maybe kind of some of the, again, challenges we've all faced. Let's kind of start with some of our online speakers this time. Sasha, would you like to kind of kick us off on this?
Yeah, I guess it would bring me back a little bit what I already mentioned about that being not having those opportunities outside of the scope just of my science project to do other things. And I think it would be really nice if there were more opportunities for the scientists at that stage when you're really young, you're undergraduate doing bachelor or master, to have opportunities like have internships to look more in how the policies are developed, how the climate negotiation and adaptation processes are happening. So there is no this disconnect between the science and what happens after you discovered the problem, but what happens after that, how you implement the solutions. I think for the scientists themselves to understand how it all works will probably help to mitigate, to make this whole process easier, to facilitate the implementation of the solutions for the project, for the problem that you discovered. So I think having those opportunities available there for early career researchers while they're doing their research in climate science would be great. Was there any different NGOs or public bodies or anywhere? The more the merrier of those opportunities. I think it would be really beneficial for everyone.
Yeah, I agree with Dr. Alexandra. That is correct. This is an opportunity for an early career researchers from every sector or in any subject area, and we can come together and act against the climate change issues. This is a great platform, and it's a equality in everything. I feel like that in our activities and everything, and we have no any discriminations or anything or any negative things around among us, and it's a great it's a great platform for future upcoming new members also, so that we can expect a good outcome in a nearby future from our activities, and we can do more. Okay, thank you so much.
Well, maybe I can also bring another point to that, not so much on like the opportunities on the ground, but also maybe from a mental perspective. So I see myself like working, when I started working for different international organizations, that I was always thinking, oh, but I might not be the specialist on a lot of things because I'm not the specialist on nature. I haven't studied biology or something like since, yeah, undergrad basically. But in the end, when you realize slowly, oh, actually maybe there are these specialists who are like the perfect biologists or the perfect economists or like like in whatever field they're working. But in the end, if you're actually there as a young professional in research and you have something to say, I think it's also really important to just acknowledge, oh, you have a point to make. And I think that's on the one hand a barrier, but on the other hand also an opportunity for yourself to really realize that at a point that as a young person you can actually contribute, and that you should not stop because your years of experience doesn't say 5 to 10 years of experience, but it's like actually maybe just 2 or maybe just 1 or maybe none or something. And I think that's a challenge for myself a lot, especially I guess also as a woman, because you would always kind of feel like, oh, maybe I'm an imposter here and actually I shouldn't be here. But in the end, I think as soon as you think that, you already have to say, no, that's wrong, I can't be here. And I think that's, yeah, maybe something also to think about in these terms as a young researcher, but also something to just like keep wondering and be like, okay, it's fine that I'm thinking that, but I should stop thinking that probably.
Yeah, and I think that idea of imposter syndrome is certainly something that I've struggled with, and struggled from, being, we're talking, APECS in the or ECR in the climate sphere specifically, going from being a, child climate activist where, I'm not necessarily engaging in the science. I'm not necessarily engaging in a lot of the discussions that are sort of going behind closed doors where decisions are made. But then suddenly finding myself, how do I navigate that sphere? And then that I think for me, I felt really sort of a lot of imposter syndrome because it's like I'm used to seeing these people, but I'm not used to being seen in that way. So for me, that was definitely challenging. But I think it also, as you said, presents some opportunities as well. And so that's it's obstacles, but there's also being able to kind of gain that comfort of just being sort of dropped in the middle of something and say like maybe you're not the expert in here, but that doesn't mean you don't have a role to play.
I completely agree. I think a lot of this kind of goes back to the discussion we had earlier about kind of some of the strengths of ECRs kind of here in the climate discussions in general. And we do have a lot of kind of like unique perspectives and kind of again unique skill sets and talents that you kind of may not see in ECR kind of more involved in these discussions. And I do think kind of one of the barriers that some people can kind of fully internalize that yet, especially kind of maybe kind of some of your older researchers who maybe kind of don't fully see the value of ECRs in these discussions. And kind of personally, I definitely experienced some degree of kind of pushback from people who, especially kind of those who maybe kind of hear in climate conferences, kind of need to hear a lot of the messages that kind of a lot of ECRs really trying to push the most. I found there are some who definitely have a tendency to kind of be incredibly resistant to doing anything because, oh, you're not an expert, or oh, you have 5 PhDs or anything like that. So kind of the I think that kind of sometimes can feed into the whole imposter syndrome idea too, where it's like, oh, you do hear a lot of people, kind of pushing back and be like, oh, you have to be like, hit some arbitrary standard of expert to contribute to the discussion. I can kind of feel really demoralizing. And yeah, like Simone mentioning, especially kind of people who like based on other intersectionality and kind of identity problems kind of historically haven't been really kind of well represented in this field. It can be really, really tough to, break through a lot of those barriers and kind of be willing to ignore, kind of what a lot of those, kind of naysayers have to say. So let's just say, yeah, I think that kind of definitely some of those kind of external forces as well. But I do think kind of on the positive side, we are kind of slowly but surely making steps in the right directions. I do think that kind of the increased focus on youth voices we've kind of seen at recent COPs, which is kind of the climate movement in general. You're kind of with Greta Thunberg, kind of other notable kind of youth activists. Present a lot of really good in kind of moving a lot of youth voices forward, kind of putting a lot of youth voices kind of more front and center and platforming them versus jumping to the side.
You mentioned something kind of interesting, and like at least it's an area, trying to be more working with established researchers or in an established area. When I feel imposter syndrome, it feels to me like it's coming from two different perspectives. It's not necessarily me coming into a space and feeling myself that I don't feel comfortable speaking up, but I also get resistance from other people who are, those people at the 5 PhD who come in and say, you don't know what you're talking about. So it kind of comes from both sides, that area, which is different from a lot of other areas in which people do feel imposter syndrome, where it is sort of your own perspective.
No, yeah, I totally agree. I think it's a tough one that I kind of, we're all kind of still slowly but surely kind of working to deal with. But yeah, it's nice that those kind of, we're not alone kind of dealing with this, and it's kind of a universal issue, I think, with a lot of younger people in these spaces. Wonderful. So I guess that kind of moves us over into our final question today. Just kind of trying to talk a little bit about COP28 in general. So I'd love to hear from kind of our panelists here about kind of what are some of the key takeaways that you hope people have about COP28, whether that be about ECRs or just kind of in general proceedings going on here. I think we would kind of love to hear kind of some of the perspectives that you all have. I guess we'll kind of begin with Geetha online, and we'll go from there.
Yes. Can you hear now?
Absolutely.
Yeah, okay. And I think I'm facing some issues as a ECR, because we know that the funding or getting sponsorship for attending such important events or conferences or workshops, and that is the major issue we are facing today. And I think it's a challenge for like any other ECR, or upcoming generation. So we need to prepare some funding or something like that for a nearby future for APECS or something like that, any fellowship or travel help or support to attend, to help the members to attend such important events. And it will be good. And Also, we know that many organizations and universities also funding or supporting students for their travel and attending such conferences, etc. And the current situation, I think we need to support such ECRs in a future time. We can do that, and in a little way. That is my view about this all. Thank you.
Yeah, if I may jump into it, absolutely agree. Like, support the ECRs was the big letter written everywhere. I mean, at the pace we are going, COP28, no solutions yet. The ECR is going to be the ones who are going to be making all the decisions trying to solve this problem. So going back to imposter syndrome and what Susanna said when she feels like some people say, like, you don't know what you're talking about. Well, teach me then. Teach me so I know what I'm talking about, because I am going to be the one who's going to have to sort out this mess because you are not doing it. So teach me, instead of pushing me out of the room and saying, like, we'll sort it out without you. Well, you're not. So we need more funding. And even if you come from a different field, like also what Simone mentioned, that she felt she didn't have a scientific background. When I started to look more into like adaptation, negotiation, I feel like fish out of the water because I know nothing about it. And I feel like imposter syndrome hits me there because, like, I'm a scientist, but I have nothing. I don't know how all of this will be implemented. So I think on all of the sides, we're feeling exactly the same. We just don't want to say it out loud because we don't want to feel like we're incompetent in something. So there needs to be an open discussion. The early career scientists need to be involved in the process, and they don't have to fight to be involved in the process. It has to be like, by definition, okay, bring me the early career scientists, we'll teach them everything what we know so they can sort this problem. So, and yeah, of course, the funding is needed for them to attend those conferences, because also if you work on something else, it might be not your area of expertise, and this funding won't be available to you to attend this meeting because it's not your research area, but you still want to be engaged in the finding those solutions. So more funding opportunities need to be available for early career researchers.
Yeah, so this is not my first talk. I think I genuinely feel that I usually struggle during talk, and I struggle when I'm looking into those decision makers' rooms, sitting in the negotiations, and it feels like it's a conversation that's going on above my head in that it's inaccessible to me, but it's also like feels like it lacks that urgency. And I feel that it's really hard for me often to feel like I have a lot of hope, or that I feel that these conversations are going in directions that I agree with. And not that I need to agree with everything, but I do kind of agree that we should have a future of humanity and ecosystems and a generally surviving planet. So I think, though, where I do get some hope is seeing a rising generation that is not afraid to say, this is an emergency and we're here to do something about it. And if you're not going to do something about it, get out of the way. So I think that gives me really an area of a lot of hope. And I hope that that's something that we can take with us and we can move into future conversations.
Yeah, I think I agree with you on like the on having hope a little bit in that direction, especially now if you look at COP and the different events that are around and you realize, oh, suddenly actually nature comes more into the discussion, and we have like more this urgency of like actually like let's tackle the climate crisis, but also the biodiversity loss and the nature crisis. And it seems to be suddenly like slowly actually that this is brought together, while we still have on the one hand, well, COP28, but then also like COP for nature, basically. So you're wondering what the hell is going on. But I think that's also where early career researchers can really actually combine things, and we need to come back to the interdisciplinary level, basically, and combine conversations. And I think that is like something that is also making me hopeful to this.
And seeing the relevance between those, like, I mean, that we're used to, whether it's juggling multiple balls, being able to find those connections, or studying at the intersection of something that many people may not. So being like, no, this is actually directly relevant to this other topic, so that we can bring nature into conversations on finance, for example, that you don't need to be separate. So I think it creates a lot more dynamicity and a richness to the conversations that we haven't necessarily had before.
Yeah, and I definitely resonate, I think, a lot with what both Susanna and Simone were talking about, kind of the, kind of hope as well as problems that we kind of feel here at COP. Much as Susanna, this is not my first COP either. And I kind of definitely resonate with your feeling, kind of being in those rooms where the discussions are happening, kind of where delegations are meeting. And just I kind of wanted to go up and shake them. I was like, hey, it's a lot more urgent than kind of maybe you're making it out to be. I do think kind of some of it comes from the kind of more emotional connection a lot of us might have with this, where it's like, if we like it or not, you have to kind of grow up in a world that's going to go and be largely shaped by and I kind of does kind of create a stronger connection with these problems. It's like, this is our future. So this is what we're going to deal with for the next, 70 years. And I just kind of a very weird feeling kind of being at these events and kind of being, again, close enough to the action to kind of see and hear everything that's going on, but not like close enough to like really feel like we can make a super kind of substantial difference kind of in the moment. But I there's a lot of hope as well. I kind of, again, I agree that kind of it's great because there's so many young people at these events now. I mean, I can't even tell you the number of people I've met who are, around our ages. I've seen you like walking around or spoken to while here. And it's kind of really, again, inspiring and a great thing that so many young people are getting so invested in these issues in the climate crisis. Because these are voices that we really need in this discussion. So again, you definitely always walk away from COP with a kind of very mixed bag of feelings. But I think it's kind of nice to have all these forums like this where we kind of again can see we're all on the same page. I think kind of a lot of our kind of feelings towards events like COP and kind of this problem in general. So I kind of really do hope that kind of COP26 does end up being a, if nothing else, kind of a very kind of substantial step forward for kind of youth groups and kind of, again, continue to have that importance like, hey, we need, young people who kind of, aren't satisfied to the oil industries or whatnot, to kind of really take charge on these discussions and take charge on these things. It's kind of my main hope of this event. So that kind of brings us, I guess, to the end of our panel discussion here. A huge thank you to all 4 of our panelists for your wonderful insights. I think it was a really great discussion for me. I hope it was really beneficial for both you and everyone else watching this talk. So we're going to kind of move back over to the slideshow really quickly. Just kind of do a bit of a wrap up on the APECS organization and some of our future projects. Perfect. So we're involved in a lot of different activities right now. I won't go through the whole list. It's out there if you want to read it. But we kind of really are trying to hit a lot of the key goals that kind of we all really hit on in this discussion, as well as that Susanna was talking about. We're really trying to emphasize kind of bringing more ECRs together from all around the world via social events, world summits, conferences. We really want to kind of, again, try and bring as many just diverse youth voices together to discuss both the kind of climate issues as well as Cryosphere in general, and kind of really build that robust, effective network of really career researchers in these fields. Beyond that, we're also doing a lot of work on this kind of general workshopping and kind of providing those career resources for early career researchers who we set up to succeed, kind of via a variety of workshops that we have planned at a lot of the kind of major polar conferences and polar events coming up here. We're just going to really kind of try and focus on kind of providing these resources to our different committees all around the world and leaders all around the world. So we are best equipped to handle issues like this. So that kind of brings us to the end of our program for today. Thank you all so much for being here, as well as watching online. We will be around afterwards to answer questions to anyone has any. Let's hear it for all of our panelists today.
Do you have some questions from online if you'd like to answer them now, or we hold them over?
You can right now. Yeah.
Yeah, sure.
So we have 2 questions from Joshua Roy. First question is, what support does APEC provide to young people outside of research opportunities?
Yeah, I can start that one. And kind of like you kind of mentioned on this slide, honestly, one of our really big goals is trying to like bring kind of early career researchers together. We try and hold It's been a major focus of the past couple of years in particular. We really try and hold a lot of kind of social events, and we're trying to organize this APECS World Summit, kind of all these kind of major events that kind of meant to give young ECRs a chance to kind of come together, network, get to know one another, and just kind of build that spread out network of interdisciplinary skill sets that we kind of touched on. It's so important to success in this field. I think it's kind of one of the major projects we're kind of doing outside of just providing free resources.
Second question should be quite easy actually. Any requirements for joining the program?
None at all. Membership is free. Anyone can join as long as you just identify with being an early career researcher. We'd love to have you. If you actually jump over to the next slide.
One beneath it.
Yes, there we go. Down a little more perfect. www.apex.is is our organization's website. So just head on over there and you'll kind of see information about exactly kind of how to join us. But again, membership is free. It's again as high or low a time commitment as you want it to be. So we kind of try to be very, very flexible for anyone interested in these topics or in these projects.
And I think just adding to that membership is that because it's self-identifying as early career, there's no hard cutoff. There's no definition as to who you need to be. So we do have people who are in their 40s, in their 50s, who've done some career and then they've pivoted and they're like, hey, I want to do this. I'm starting a grad program, a master's for a year in this, and I want to learn something about it. And they will join. And being in groups with those people, you're learning from an entire wealth of information. And so it's really cool that everybody's able to bring so many different things to the table. And I think that's something I really appreciate as well.
Absolutely. And that actually did remind me of another kind of major non-direct career benefit that we do provide, which is kind of the ability to kind of expose yourselves to a lot of those different skills. I mean, like Susanna talked about earlier, members of APECS kind of range from everything from your more traditional scientists to artists, musicians. A lot of our project groups do reflect that. Right? And we have we have podcast groups, we have art groups, we have kind of DEI groups. So we have a lot of individuals kind of really focused on all these different topics that are again vital and important to the cryosphere, climate science. So yeah, very much is a kind of whoever you are, if you kind of do resonate with this mission, resonate with these ideas, we would love it.
Josh Rowe, thank you.
Thank you, Josh.
Any other questions from the audience?
I work with the governance of climate altering technologies, and I work with several organizations in the Arctic region. And I was wondering if at APECS there's any ongoing research on climate intervention, because you mentioned a lot about nature-based solutions, but I know that there are lots of young researchers also looking into that.
So as far as I know, the organization itself doesn't have a group devoted towards that, but we do have certainly a lot of members who that's the area in which they're working. So they're pretty much free to work in any sphere they want. But as an institution, there's no perspective or no framework for that. But there are frameworks for somebody to say, hey, this is what I'm interested in doing. As I mentioned, I mean, with a diplomacy group, getting together with somebody else, two other people, and being like, we want to do this. So, there could be somebody who says, hey, this is an interest of mine. I'm going to bring it up at the next whole council meeting, or I'm going to bring it up with a couple of people and get it out there and see if anybody else wants to do something. So there are opportunities for that, in which case APECS would then discuss, there's a whole, you propose topic and develop it, and there's an approval process and whatnot. But it's a way in which something such as that, if we have a bunch of people who are interested, could become more formalized.
I'll get in touch with you.
Yeah, and kind of just to jump off that, I even kind of beyond being a topic, I think would be a lot of excitement for stuff like that too. When I started the our top project group about a year and a half ago, I would not have expected it to be nearly as kind of popular as it ended up being, but there was a ton of interest from a kind of wide variety of members to kind of get involved with this group and kind of get involved with our work. So kind of I take that as there really is a desire and interest in APECS members to get kind of more involved in this kind of very direct climate-based, with solutions for project groups. So yeah, I can be a lot of interest in a topic like that.
Sounds good. I'll write to you.
Thank you.
Should have a question. Does APECS have any partnership with more activist-oriented organizations such as Just.oil or the Extinction Rebellion? We could benefit from a large knowledge base that APECS has, in my opinion.
Yeah, I think it's organizationally no, individual members I'd say absolutely. I kind of think as an organization, APEC does take more of a I'm trying to find the right word. Still is the wrong word, but kind of a they try to kind of get directly involved in institution kind of in activism movements. But that's kind of purely at the institutional level. Kind of speaking for both myself and probably other members of a lot of us kind of involved in things like that. To kind of get look at 2 degrees of separation based.
Okay, thanks.
And we talk about that amongst members, so it's not like it's separate from APECS. It's we don't put APECS's name out there saying this is a demonstration. But as we did with ICCI this morning, we had a demonstration that was under ICCI. So maybe going in that direction there.
If anyone does want to kind of write to us, get in touch with us, I don't want to pull up the slideshow. It's going to be a lot of hard work. There we go.
Yeah.
But info@apex.is is the best way to get in touch with us. So if you're interested in kind of collaborating, starting a new project group, getting involved, anything like that, write to us there. We'd love to hear from you. But yeah, that brings us to the end of our presentation. Thank you all so much.
Yeah.
What are the figurines?
I think I can do that.